Birthday party face painter. I was browsing one of those coupon websites, think Groupon, etc., and came across a face painter deal. My daughter's birthday was coming up, so I quickly read through the fine print before paying. I immediately contacted the lady and gave her 6 dates to check if she was available. She said no to every single one. She then said that she was only available on weekdays, even though that wasn't in the fine print. I said okay and gave her more dates to choose from. Again, she was busy on all of them, so I asked her to just give me a date and I'd make it work. We get to the day of the party and guess who doesn't show up? She messaged me back after the party and says she couldn't make it, no reason given, and she wouldn't be refunding the money. I contacted the coupon place and they got the money back. It still sucked that we didn't have a face painter at the party, but the kids had fun anyway. Cue revenge. I created a fake Facebook profile with her phone number and posted face painting party giveaways on different local mums pages for about 6 months until she changed her number. The person not being available for the initial days or like any of the days suggested is weird, but not really like a jerk thing deserving of revenge. No showing for a child's birthday party though? Yeah, that's worthy of a little revenge. Be a better human and parent. When my son was between the ages of 1 and 2, I would take him to a community center that had a great playroom. Anyone could use it for the cost of $1 or $2. It was a wonderful shared space filled with lots of age-appropriate toys and activities. We loved going there. Normally, there would be a few other families in there and the kids could have someone their own age to play with. One day I was in there playing with my son when another mom entered with her kid. We were the only ones in the room at the time. After a bit, my kid took an interest in them and went over to where they were playing. This mom would have nothing to do with it. She did everything to ignore him and wouldn't share any of the room's toys with him. Rude. My kid gave up and went back to playing on his own. A little while later, this other child came up and shoved my son down onto the floor. I jumped a bit, but when they're small, this sometimes happens as they are learning. I kept my eye on it and the other mom, who didn't even flinch. My kid went back to playing. Well, a few minutes goes by and that other kid knocks him down again. That was it. My son starts to cry and the other mom just sits there watching it, doing nothing. I ran over and scooped him up to comfort him. I asked the other mom if she was just going to keep letting her kid push mine down. Her half-hearted response was something about how her son was just being a boy. Mama bears no. You make our kids cry, you've crossed the line. I gathered him up and gave her a dirty look. No apology on her end. And no correction of her son's behavior. Time for us to go. We were outside of the room in the hallway putting our shoes back on to go. You see, you had to remove your shoes to enter the room and leave them outside in a cubby. That's when I saw her pretty little Doc Marten boots. I just so happened to have an unopened bottle of apple juice in my backpack. I took that juice and poured the entire contents into both of her boots. I just walked away calmly. Needless to say, I didn't return to the playroom ever again, but it was worth it. Don't be a rude person and teach your kids some damn manners. While I don't think the mother in question would have actually learned her lesson from this, I do think it's a nice bit of revenge to know that she will have to deal with that for a while. And yeah, absolutely, teach your kid to not be awful. It's pretty easy. Not raising a child, but like, making your kid not terrible, sort of thing. My abuser crapped himself. My dad has been pretty abusive pretty much my whole life, but especially since I turned 16. He's routinely threatened to kick me out, dragged me out by my neck, and other stuff I don't really want to get into. He'd also have random shouting fits towards me about things that really aren't that important. After all this wearing me out and causing me trauma, I've learned to just not listen to the things he's saying. I'll just immediately leave and block out the sound somehow by finding my headphones and blasting music or covering my ears if the headphones aren't available. I don't listen to a thing he says or take anything remotely seriously. This morning I was in the bathroom. I was just peeing when my dad knocks and impatiently tries to open the door. Him saying that he needed to use the bathroom turned into him yelling at me and saying, "I'm going to crap myself." I ignore him, cover my ears and tell him if he's going to yell at me, it's just going to take longer. He keeps shouting. So I ignore him, say, "Thanks, guess I'm taking a shower now," and get in the shower and shave my legs. I come back later and there's a bucket full of human crap in the bathroom. Obviously disgusting, but I hope it humbled him. I really want to believe this won't just make the dad come down harder on OP, but I'm not really hopeful. Either way, I do like that an abusive person just gets what's coming to them sometimes. Fire me? Have fun dealing with the FSA. This is a fresh story. It takes place within 24 hours of me posting this. Some backstory before I begin. So 3 weeks ago, I left my corporate small fry job making $12 an hour with tips for a cushy salaried $60,000 a year head chef position. The new job seemed to be going really well. I was enjoying it. The owner also got some much needed time off and time to work on his renovations to the place. I knew I wasn't walking into the most well-maintained / clean environment and planned to really spruce up the kitchen. Keep in mind I was the only kitchen staff they had. The owner seemed really nice. He only had to pop in for about 30 minutes a day to see if I needed anything from the store. My coworkers were all really nice as well, and all the regulars gave me high praise for my food. It was honestly a dream job for me. When I was going through the interview process, I had informed my potential new employer that I had some pre-approved time off at my old job, 3 days to celebrate my 25th with my husband and mother-in-law. 3 days because my mother and her boyfriend were coming from another state for their normal visit, and 2 days to celebrate my husband's birthday. All of which were spread throughout the month of June. First round of 3 days went by with no issue. I returned to work and had a good time. Next 3 days went by spending time with my mom. When I returned to work this last Tuesday, everything seemed fine. Yesterday, I went into work not really having any prep to do, and being a thunderstorm day, it was slow. I did maybe about 150 in food sales in a full 8-hour shift. I sent a text to the owner asking if he wanted me to shut down early, as was the example he set during my first week of training. We did $300 in food sales and he shut us down an hour early for it being too slow. He responded and said no, keep the kitchen open full hours no matter what. I understood, responded that I would without issue, and went about my night. That evening, about 10 minutes after I returned home, the owner asked me to call him. In the phone call, he informed me that our relationship was not working out and we needed to part ways. I had no warnings, no talking tos, and he could give me no reasonings other than you just had 6 days off and you wanted to close early. It seems you're just not the right fit. Now, my husband, mother-in-law, and myself were fuming as it's kind of a crappy thing to do to an employee. But due to us being in an at-will state, there was nothing I could do to fight it. This morning, I'm on Indeed putting out more applications, and I noticed my old job was posted, but with a minor change. The new posting went from $60,000 a year down to $18 an hour, nearly half of what he agreed to pay me. This pissed me off. If he was just a decent human and told me that he couldn't uphold the original agreement for the salary, I would have agreed to a pay cut. I did really enjoy this job and the people I was with. Instead, he beat around the bush and refused to give me any real reasons, making me believe that I had done something wrong. So now I've concocted the revenge. I only worked for him for 12 shifts total. In those 12 shifts, I did some cleaning but couldn't accomplish it all as there was a lot. So this morning I went and grabbed the email for the FSA, Food Safety Administration for those who may not know, for my county and sent them a lengthy email about my concerns for this place. A less detailed version of it included things like flooring being a safety hazard, there are literal chunks missing allowing food to get stuck and people to get hurt, refrigeration systems leaking and not being properly maintained, a large mold outbreak behind one of the food lines, containers of veggies being used for pizzas that were dated as being opened mid-April, suggested use time is 7 days fresh, 14 canned, workers dropping food and picking it up off the floor before serving said dropped food to customers, a bartender coming back with shakers filled with grated parm cheese that molded, the owner telling her to pick the mold out and refill the shakers with the unmolded cheese, plus more things that I won't include on here, but the state of the place was atrocious. I'm not sure if anything will ever come out of this, but if it does, I'll update y'all. Either way, it's made me feel better knowing that there's a chance that there could be some backlash to an owner who has no common courtesy for their fellow workers. I'm a little confused by the whole dream job thing into, oh, this place was disgusting because, I would not want to eat there. Although I'm sure everyone in the food industry has told me that it's really horrific back there and a lot of people eating just don't know, but still, that sounds gross. The best kind of revenge is just giving someone what was coming to them, and that sounds like what it was here. Big fan. Never be a jerk to a really rich guy. I worked at a marina where there were condos along the side. A client of ours talked to us about a slip directly in front of one of the vacant condos to keep his boat. It was a pretty tight-knit community, and we talked to the guy renting that slip about moving to another one, and he had no problem. Great, until the guy went to talk to the manager of the condos about renting the vacant one. The manager of the condos was known for being a bit of a jerk, but no one thought he would actively be one to this guy for no apparent reason. He said someone else was waiting for that particular condo and he couldn't have it. Well, this guy wanting to rent it would have normally had no issue with moving to one a bit further away from his boat, but apparently this manager was just a straight-up jerk. I honestly forgot about it until about a month later when I saw him moving into the condo directly in front of his boat. I was a bit surprised and I asked my boss about it, figuring the manager finally gave in or the ones who reserved it backed out, but oh no. This was the petty revenge. My boss tells me this guy was pissed. So he found out who the organization that owned the condos was and bought the whole complex and then fired the manager. I talked to him a few weeks later over beers and asked him about it. He said it was true. I asked him why he didn't just talk to the investment firm and get the guy fired. He said he was going to, but still wanted the condo, and once going over the financials, he realized he had a good return on the investment. Plus, he then had the opportunity to do upgrades he wouldn't have been able to do by renting. He was a really nice guy. I never imagined someone would go through all that just to spite a jerk, but here you are. Moral of the story is never piss off a man with enough money and will to buy a whole company just to fire you. Park a shared scooter in a private yard? Prepare your ears. This revenge is short but sweet. The other day, I was in need of a shared e-scooter and there were only 2 available in my neighborhood, which were near each other. The app showed that they were not on a road, but rather in a private area. Where I live, this isn't usually a problem, since most often this means that they're in a yard of a block of flats which is freely accessible. Only this time it was a nearby homeowner that had decided to park the scooters in his private yard. The residents had parked the scooters close to the house, which was not easily accessible, but very close to their windows, important for the revenge. Now this, of course, is prohibited in the use of these shared scooters, and there was a complaint form that I could have used to make a complaint about these people and the parking. However, I decided to go in a different direction. The app has a function, ring a bell, to easily find the scooters when you're looking for them. The sound the scooters make is surprisingly loud, and there was only a 5-second waiting time between rings. So when I walked away from the house, the next few minutes I hit that button like my life depended on it. I could hear it surprisingly far, and yeah, I was happy about it, I'm not gonna lie. After a few minutes, the app showed that the scooter had actually moved further away from the house to a road, so I assume my revenge was successful. This is the definition of petty revenge. It's a small little thing that's mostly just an annoyance, but it's obviously someone doing something wrong. And then that person doing something wrong is bit in the butt by their own doing. It's perfect. Don't be rude to airport staff. I posted this story on another site, but I felt it would fit well in here. This happened during my time living in NSW, Australia. If there's one thing I've learned about traveling, it is do not annoy airport staff. After all, they're the people who decide if you get to board or not. Being aggressive, rude, or confrontational to them will get you nowhere. Literally. I was at Sydney Airport traveling to see family in New Zealand, and I was going through the bag check. In front of me, I could see an angry, red-faced businessman who seemed to be stressed and in a hurry. The security person, an Asian woman in her 40s, was checking his luggage, and the businessman immediately became abusive. He started yelling, "Why the hell are you looking at that? Get a bloody move on!" "Sir, your luggage was selected for a hand check, so you just need to be patient." "I have an international flight leaving in 10 minutes. Frickin' hurry up! God, I'm sick of this airport hiring these idiots." "Sir, you need to calm down. We're just doing our jobs." Instead of calming down, Mr. Businessman predictably became angrier and belligerent towards the staff and, of course, started dropping slurs. "I travel through this airport frequently, and it gets worse every time because you keep hiring these Asian slurs, and I'm sick of their damn incompetence. Learn to speak frickin' English. I have a flight leaving in 10 minutes. I don't have time for this crap. Just give me my bag and let me leave. Why is that so frickin' hard?" Security now looked extremely fed up with the guy, but clearly, they weren't done with him yet. I noticed that the staff member did her bag check slightly slower than normal. All the while, the man proceeded to throw a tantrum and act like a spoiled child. At long last, he snatched his luggage away and began to stomp off, only to be stopped for a body search. Immediately, he blew his top again. When I left to walk to my gate, he was still raging, and I very much so doubt that he got his flight. The moral of this story: while traveling is stressful, it always helps to be patient with staff doing their jobs. Otherwise, you may not make your flight. I'm still baffled about why he was causing so much trouble when he had so little time to make his flight. So, airport security, in some ways, are like service staff. And when people get angry at service staff, it makes me lose my mind. This guy got exactly what he deserved. Have some respect for people who are trying to help you. Trust me, they're just doing their jobs. Unless you piss them off. Then they're doing a little more than their jobs, but, you know.